All righty, we are here. I am excited. I cannot wait for this topic. I know you can't wait either. You're on the edge of your seat, and that is where I want to keep you, the edge of your seat. Cliffhanger. Now, I'd love to see how many of you, is this your first time attending a live class? And how many of you have come to a lot of these or one of these before? So just type in first time or repeat. First time means this is your first time getting to experience one of these. Repeat means you're repeating, you've been to these before. I will say, spoiler alert, this was a very popular topic. And I'm glad because I think it's a very important topic. And also, the gentleman who will be walking us through the material is incredible. Okay, so look, we got some first time repeats. I love it. Another first time. Dale, welcome. Bill, Lena, welcome. First time repeater. Got some repeats here. Mary, welcome back. Psyched to repeat. That's the energy that I need. I need more of that energy. Tyler's repeated. Nick, hello, welcome. First time. All right. A good amount of first timers. So I'm really excited to give you a bit of a lay of the land, introduce our guest, and we're going to dive right into the content. Before I do that, I just want to let you know you are in the right place. We do these classes every single week. And for those of you who repeat, and if you're looking at the comments, you know a lot of people repeat this. The feedback we get from the surveys, and I'm going to ask everybody to do at the end, by the way, spoiler alert. The feedback we get is that people really appreciate how we give them actionable takeaways that they can use tomorrow. And this isn't just a whole big sales conversation. Okay, so this is not your normal, hey, I'm on a webinar and they're going to try to pitch me some software thing. That's not what we're doing here. We come very heavy with the content first. Okay, so I'm excited to see so many first timers here. Hopefully you'll be able to type in repeat. If you're interested in some of the classes that we have coming up, we just redesigned this page. So I'm going to share it with you, but know that some mistakes are being fixed. Let me share this. Boom. It's voris.com/events. You'll see all of our upcoming events. Again, there's a couple little weird typos on the page we're in the middle of fixing. And then for those of you who are repeat, what's cool is that the new events page is going to have past events too. So you can go and you can watch the replays. Okay, cool. Quick housekeeping before I introduce the topic and the person who's going to be speaking. Q&A. It's going to be about 30 minutes of content, 20 to 30 minutes of content. Then we jump into Q&A. This is the most important part. What I ask is please type in your question when it comes to you. So when it first pops in your head, type in the question, because what we do is at the very end of the content, we jump right into Q&A. I like to scroll to the top and go question by question. What questions can you ask? Anything related to growing an audience on LinkedIn, getting leads from LinkedIn, anything around that is totally fair game, but also anything around sales and selling. Quick background on me. My name is Kyle Van Voris. I've built over 80 sales teams. I've worked generally with B2B software and service companies, helping them build a repeatable sales process. I started as an SDR. I've been in AE. I've been in executive meetings while my sales team is doing great. I've been in board meetings while sales is not going great. I've been able to see the sales function from a lot of different lenses. And if you follow me, you know that I'm very passionate about a data-driven approach to building and scaling sales teams. I've written 3 Amazon best-selling books, one on cold outreach called Cold to Committed. The other one's called The Sales Development Framework on how to run a sales development team. And then the most recent one's called 16 Steps to Repeatable Sales. I have helped our clients sell over 100 million in software and services. About 30% of our clients are venture backed. While working with us, they've raised over 280 million across all of them. And then I've trained personally over 1,000 salespeople. So I've been around the block. I've seen a lot, and I'm very excited to go through the topic today, but also to introduce my guest. This is his first time being an actual guest. This is our former CMO, Dan. He started his own company now, which I'm very excited about. And for those of you who've never met Dan, Dan is one of my closest friends. He's also a wizard when it comes to copywriting. He's been doing that for 18 years. He'll tell you more about his background in a minute. But also, how do you message yourself in a way that's going to resonate with your audience? But more importantly, how do you take that audience that now knows of you and actually generate leads? There's so much out there when it comes to building an audience on LinkedIn or any other platform where they talk a lot about the content you need to create, but they don't talk about how you actually get leads and monetize that audience. That's the topic of today. How do we grow the audience and how do we actually generate leads from the audience? And if you're a founder here, that should be a breath of fresh air. I don't want you to create content into the void and hope that somebody reaches out to you. I want you to be intentional about it. There's no one better in my network than Dan McDermott. Dan, Welcome to the weekly live class. Are you feeling empowered and excited?
Feeling great. Thanks for the intro, Kyle. How are you?
Yeah, of course. Well, go ahead and share your screen, Dan. I'm going to let you take over from here. And then everybody, like I said, type your questions when they come to you. I'm going to be organizing them on the back end here. That way we can get to everybody's questions. I'm very excited for this. Dan, take us away.
All righty. So I am going to, can you see my screen okay? Let's just double check.
Yeah,
Look good.
great.
Okay, super. So, hey, everybody, thanks for coming. This is fun to be in the guest seat for a change after hosting a bunch of these. So today we are basically being brought to you by Vorus, of course, and then what my company is Stick and Grow. And we can get into that in a sec. Keep going here. And today we're going to be talking about founder-led funnels, specifically how to turn your LinkedIn content into email subscribers and sales meetings. I think specifically, I want to call something out. Kyle has often said that social selling and posting social stuff on LinkedIn is not really for entry-level salespeople. I think there's much better time spent, better ROI for them to do direct sales actions. But if you're a founder, if you're a leader, you probably have a ton of stuff in your head, a ton of expertise, a ton of really good, valuable knowledge that you can share with the world, but also help solve problems and be really valuable. And unfortunately, that's not really happening with a lot of companies. So if we haven't met yet, my name is Dan McDermott. I've been a copywriter for a long time. It feels old looking at this, but it's been a while and I've been around the block. I've worked with everything from Fortune 100 companies to local businesses to, I used to work for the UN and projects for USAID overseas. And then pretty much everything under the sun digitally as well. I was the head copy coach and head of growth over at copywritingcourse.com and of course the CMO here at Vorus. And what I do currently is looking specifically as a dedicated thing, helping B2B founders build LinkedIn funnels at Stick and Grow. So with that said, I'm going to try to keep this stuff pretty tight today because there's a very simple problem with a couple of simple underlying factors. And essentially, and I'd like you to just quietly take an honest gauge of your own activity on LinkedIn yourself. What I hear back is that there's a lot of effort going into what we're quote unquote supposed to be doing, but low return. So a lot of time spent, a lot of posting done, a lot of, hey, I'm following the rules, I'm posting every day even, but there's not much strategy behind it. And I think that's really ultimately the big problem. It's great to get likes. It's great to get post impressions. It's great to get profile impressions. And it's overall good to grow on LinkedIn, but likes ain't leads, buddy. And I think that's a really big thing that we got to look at is ultimately, is your time spent, especially if you're the founder, if you're the CEO, if you're a true leader at your company, are you spending time on this platform and generating business results during the workday? Or is it a social platform like it was 10 years ago when people were posting cat memes and whatnot? Or, I mean, on LinkedIn, I guess we never really did that. But are you really getting business ROI out of this? And if you're not, there's probably something wrong. Most of us can look at our stats and see, tens of thousands of impressions, hundreds of thousands of impressions, in Kyle's case, it's even more. But are you actually getting results that you can measure and optimize over time? That's ultimately the question that we have to ask ourselves here, like I said, honestly. And as I said, if that's the case, you're basically wasting your time, probably your energy. It's probably pretty frustrating. And you might even be buying courses or investing in people to come in, basically either ghostwrite for you or, team members come in and try to do stuff on your behalf. And things get pretty messy pretty quickly. And it doesn't really lead anywhere. It's a lot of energy that just doesn't return you anything. And then here, this is what I think is the kind of the biggest pity is that a lot of people, like I said, have a ton of experience. Maybe you've written a book even in your space, but you're not known. I know so many people like this who have, a handful of followers, and don't really do anything with it anyways. And then somebody else in the space who has a fraction of the experience, a fraction of the skill, a fraction of the value really to the space. But they have this huge profile because they know how to essentially game the system a little bit, use the platform the right way, and they just grow, like a rocket ship. And you end up sort of sitting there going, what am I doing wrong? So I don't want that to be the case for you. And what I'd like to share with today is basically a couple of very simple steps that you can take to fix these things. So we're going to look at a high level little talk today, and I might do a more technical presentation. Kyle might keep me around for another week or so on some different aspects of LinkedIn. But for today, the number one takeaway I want you to think of is I think the advice on LinkedIn is very, very, very almost micro-focused immediately. rather than saying, wait a minute, where's the strategy? Let's take a step back and let's actually build something. So for example, if on day one, you sit down on LinkedIn and you're thinking, oh, well, what hook should I use? It's a good question, but that's sort of an optimization thing for later. How should I post? What's my posting schedule? What's the best time of day? These are all valid questions to be asking, and it seems to be all that anybody ever talks about when it comes to LinkedIn content. But I would like to challenge that a little bit and say, if you're not using in any content marketing, you need some sort of a funnel. And if you're not using a funnel on LinkedIn, you're not really leading anybody anywhere. So this screenshot over here on the left is from LinkedIn. This is how they actually describe themselves. I'm going to use slightly different terminology here, but if we think about tofu, mofu, bofu, that's top of funnel, middle of funnel, and then bottom of funnel. It's a really simple process to sketch this out for yourself. Tofu should be some content that grabs awareness, grabs attention, and gets people to pay attention to you and sort of see you as, oh, somebody who I like, maybe I engage with a little bit in the posts, and in general follow. You probably have some names that popped up in the last couple of months that you've started paying attention to and have started to show up in your feed a little bit. So that's top of funnel stuff. That's essentially posts of various sorts. Then we want to get to middle of funnel, where we actually get somebody to engage with us at a deeper level. What I would be looking for is an email conversion to my email newsletter. There's, again, different versions of this, but I think you want to look for something where people can basically signal to you, okay, I'm going to pay attention to you. This is a really, valid thing that I'm going to look at what you're producing. And then bofu finally is, okay, I'm ready to talk to your sales team. So I would look at it almost like these questions. The awareness stage, the top of funnel, is answering essentially, who are you and why should I care? Are you being valuable in general with your free content? And then the next level, the mofu, is, oh, can I have this thing that you made? I didn't realize you have this freebie. Wow, this freebie is really good. Can I get it? Here's my email address, happily. Free content that they would sign up for. And then finally, the conversion stage is, can I talk to your team? I'm ready to go. I'm showing up as a true MQL who's excited to talk to you and actually wants to buy. So that's what I would like to get to here. I see Darby's having a couple of some audio difficulties. If anybody else is, just post in the comments, please. So here is what the general funnel that I am using, and it's one that similar to what we used at Voris, although the topics are different. So tofu, these yellow post-it notes up here are what I'm looking at to repeatedly post about, essentially writing frameworks, funnel teardowns, examples of great LinkedIn profiles, and personal stories of my own to do with growing on social. That's the kind of content that I'm going to be posting. Hoping to grab some attention from strangers and then show up as a little bit of an authority figure in the space. Then middle of funnel is where I look at newsletters. I look at email newsletters. I'm going to start experimenting with LinkedIn newsletters as well. This is where I want to have a lead magnet. So lead magnet, as you will see in a second, is pretty important. And then webinars like this, workshops, things like this, where we can actually have a really solid reason to now give me your email address and actually engage with me happily. Again, not in any sort of fighty way here. We want to provide real value that solves specific problems for the target audience. And then finally, the bofu is, once people are on the email list, can I convert them eventually, when the time is right, to specific sales opportunities, sales meeting. So that's what I'm using. And I would suggest that you should build out something similarly simple. So that's actually what I'd like you to do. First action step of today is to visualize your funnel. Unfortunately, what happens is a lot of companies will basically have tofu stuff where the founder in this case will be posting content because that's what you're supposed to do, right? Maybe that'll somehow generate business, but they sort of stop here. And then maybe the brand will have some stuff kind of available somewhere floating around. And the truth is, it's very easy for you to take just what you have already probably in your marketing and content and just publish it on LinkedIn and create a very, very simple funnel for yourself. So
hey, Dan, real quick, let's peel back the curtain. If you go back to the last slide.
Sure.
This weekly live class we do, where would you put that in this funnel?
This is MOFU for sure. This is middle of funnel. And it I guess toes the line a little bit because the tofu stuff, the top of funnel stuff, you might have never seen Kyle's profile before because we posted via Kyle's account. But hopefully the topic was good enough to catch you immediately. So you don't have to technically run everything all the time through all three stages. But if you write a good enough post, you will attract attention and then also potentially convert somebody into a webinar. But the key here is being relevant.
And real quick, for people who have come to these before, you might know on my LinkedIn, I publish content that's just like, hey, here's do do you want a framework for solving this problem? And then you'll comment, yes, I do. And we'll just send you that framework. There's no lead magnet or anything there. That's our tofu. That's like real top of the funnel stuff. And then Dan brings up a good point. We almost bridge the gap a little bit, because for some people, this middle of the funnel is the first exposure they have to us. But it's great because we're not asking you to make any kind of commitment, right? So that's like a little bit of the behind the scenes here. Voris, my company, we don't take very many clients. So we do a lot of this middle of the funnel stuff with zero expectation of people ever reaching out to us. And eventually they do. Like, we know that they do. So maybe it's not zero expectation, but we can give a lot in this area because we don't have like a desperate need for a ton of customers. So we can kind of bridge that that gap between tofu and mofu because of that. So anyway, I just wanted to give people who have seen our stuff before a little bit of context into how we would categorize this, because that might be applicable to your guys' businesses. So I'll hop off, Dan. Thank you.
Sure, absolutely. Thanks for jumping in. The other thing here, guys, is that if you have value and you have an audience and you're consistently showing up in front of them, the timing is everything, right? Especially in higher level sales. Not everybody's ready to buy from you all the time, and being able to be available to the right people at all times and be top of mind, front of mind, is important. So whether it's on LinkedIn, whether it's on emails, that's kind of what we want to get to eventually. That's the purpose of an audience eventually. So let's, I see a question here from Kate. A funnel teardown is basically looking at other people's LinkedIn funnels and then basically going through and looking at what is good, what is bad about it, and then how we can critique it. So everybody's funnel looks slightly different, but everything follows the same general structure. So I'll get into the other questions as we get to Q&A. But basically, Kyle and I went to a coaching event many months ago now, but one of the exercises was Ryan Dice from digitalmarketer.com got us to get up and basically just start flow charting everything visually together as a team on a wall with Post-it notes. And once that happened, it sounds so simple. It sounds stupidly simple, but it was such a valuable exercise for me because I immediately started to see some gaps. I started to see, well, I'm doing a lot here, but really nothing over here. And I think it's a really healthy exercise for you to do. It's something simple you can do immediately right now after we finish this little call. And once you see it visually in front of you, you'll probably have a better sense of where you want to lead people in general. We'll get to that too. But do you have any gaps? Does it look perfect right now? I doubt it. But if it looks even half decent, you'll get to know immediately where you're strong, where you're weak, and where you can improve. So that's action step number one and idea number one. So principle number two is that you've got to convert people with real value. This goes back to what Kyle was touching upon, was, are you giving out stuff that people actually are interested in? So format matters. So these 3 X's I have over here are examples of bad formatting. Essentially, it's either too big, this overwhelming content. I mean, I don't know about you, but if I download a 100-page ebook or even a 20-page ebook, I download it and then it disappears on my computer. I totally forget about it. Same thing with, like, multi-course, multi-video, hours of video. If you can't solve my problem quickly, it's lost on me. I'll still give you my email maybe, but then I'm not going to use it. And ultimately I don't feel the value out of it. At the same time, you can be too short and you can offer too little value. And then it's also not a great experience for the reader. But if you do something like an email course, I'm a big fan of email courses. Nicholas Cole and Dickie Bush have a great whole thing about email courses. If you do any training video, in my mind, that's less than 30 minutes, really 10 minutes would be great. But as long as you are solving a specific and painful problem as efficiently as possible in the right format, you will create something of value to your audience. So just the Voris example, the sales playbook template is a very popular download. The sales comp model is also a very popular download because they both solve very specific problems, totally different formats. But a reader who is on the website and sees these things would go, oh, okay, that's for me. And that's ultimately what we want to do. So think about this for yourself. You probably have something in your marketing and your content that already fulfills this. Okay, so you don't necessarily have to go out from scratch and build something new. I mean, you might, but if you take a look at what your marketing team is already doing, you probably have something very valuable that you can just do immediately. I would suggest that I'll show you a process to go do a little discovery to get to a good topic for your lead magnet right now. But I would suggest that you shouldn't overthink this. You should quite quickly see, oh yeah, I know this thing. People light up when I talk about it. So if you don't have that packaged perfectly, fine, package it right. But you probably know this already. It's just a matter of getting it done correctly and then getting it published on the internet for people to actually download. So here is the action step that I would like you to take on this topic about developing a lead magnet. The format is a little bit rough on when it comes to video like this, but bear with me here. Basically, I am not the biggest believer in ChatGPT being a single prompt thing. I think you should engage in conversations with it. And I think it has some very, very good potential for analysis and research. It's not great at writing copy for you, so don't rely on it for copy, but it is very good at sort of helping you with ideas and brainstorming. So what I would do is basically 3 simple steps with ChatGPT. The first thing is to figure out who the ICP is. If you want to take a screenshot of this, this is what I would start with. Something like, I'm the founder of whatever my website is. Who do you think is my ICP? ChatGPT does a great job of sort of suggesting things. Be specific and define their role, their primary pain points, goals, and alternative solutions. This prompt will get you a lot of really cool stuff. And I would suggest that you want to think about the problems that are being identified. There is a ton of stuff we could do we could talk about customer research all day long. This is the quickest, dirtiest, but also quite efficient way to get to a good problem. So that's step 1. All right, screenshot this prompt. And I'm going to go on here. After you get a good answer back from ChatGPT about the pain points, the goals, the business metrics, all the stuff that this role looks for or has, you then want to ask it something like, okay, great. Now that we have a clear picture of my ICP, let's brainstorm together. I want you to come up with a list of 25 problem statements from their POV. There's, again, deeper stuff we could do here, but I just want 25 simple bullet points where it just goes, I hate it when blank. It's really hard when blank. How do you blank? If we get a list of stuff like this, this will give us content ideas. It'll give us a whole bunch of stuff, but that's step 2. So I want a list of problem statements from the perspective, the point of view of the target reader, the target audience. And then finally, this one's a little bit longer. We covered a lot of ground here. Now I want to develop an amazing lead magnet for our ICP. It needs to be actionable, practical, able to be digested and implemented within an hour, and feel high value. I want you to identify the most painful problem we came up with and suggest 3 lead magnet ideas that would solve it. This is really ultimately the key prompt that we want to have in here. ChatGPT is quite good at coming up with good ideas here. And again, I want to emphasize, you don't have to go word for word with this stuff. So if you want to get a little bit, experiment a bit here, I would encourage you to do so with all 3 steps. But ultimately, I just want to isolate who we're talking to, what their problems are, and then of the problems, what is the most pressing problem that I can solve for you in 20 minutes? That's essentially how I want to look at it. Formatting, of course, matters. We could do playbooks. We could do a checklist could be okay, but it could also be a little bit light. A little mini training video. You just doing a screen share might be the best lead magnet out there. But do something like this, and you will discover a very, very good topic for your lead magnet, and probably also a very good format that you can go out and build immediately if you don't have one already top of mind. So that is so far. Yeah, I'm going to come back and answer some of these as we go. So principle number 3 is you need systems for both quantity and consistency to feed the funnel. So just to back up for a second, we talked about strategy in principle number 1, about actually taking a step back and strategically setting up a content funnel to drive people towards a specific action that's going to be valuable for them. Right. And then in step number 2, we talked about where to point that machine basically, and be focused on a specific problem for a specific person. And then number 3 is now we got to put the fuel into that machine, to stretch the metaphor a little bit here. And frankly, this is where a lot of people fail. I think this is where people, they try to start with this step and they start going, oh, I'm going to post daily content, but then they have no systems to write. And then they end up looking at a blank post. They end up, looking at their watch and going, oh, it's 5 p.m. already. I didn't post on LinkedIn today. Oh, crap. Okay. Here's a random post just to get something out there. Guess what, guys? That's not going to work. Like, ultimately, are you showing up versus the best minds in your niche with that kind of content and expecting to win? And I will hold my own hand up and say, I've done that. I've been guilty of this. And I know it doesn't work because I can see the results. But if we are sitting down intentionally, and I'm going to show you exactly the steps that I would suggest taking here to never run out of ideas, but also give yourself structure for idea gathering, and then also structure for writing. And this is how professional writers, if you think about journalists, how quick they write, they have systems. If you think about authors, how much they can write, what they have systems. For LinkedIn, as a founder, as an expert in your field, you have all this knowledge. You just need a little bit of a framework to get that knowledge out of your head and onto paper, or in this case, LinkedIn, in a valuable way. So what I would suggest doing here is using something that I call ICE. It's very simple, 3 steps. Frankly, we could probably do 2 steps, but it's ideate, create, and then edit. And really what I'm talking about here with ideas, idea gathering should be a slow activity. Idea gathering should just happen randomly. Shower thoughts. I'm out on a walk. I sit down at the computer and something randomly pops into my head over here. I want to be able to gather those ideas in one place. So I'm showing you a pretty distracting GIF right here with the system that I use in Notion. It's very simple. I just take screenshots of things, dump them into the top of my Notion doc, and then below that, I have a table where once I have the screenshots, I will take the screenshots into more specific ideas that are a little bit more thought out. And then I will check off whether they're going to be a newsletter thing, a LinkedIn post, all of the above, and what formats I write in. And when I sit down to write, I'm never sitting there with a blank cursor blinking at me going, oh my God, okay, I blocked off 30 minutes to write. So what should I write about? And then I spend time thinking. And then by the time I think of a good idea, it's not an efficient way to work. Instead, if you can say, okay, I have a ton of ideas, great. When I sit down once a week to actually write, I can then grab one of the ideas without taking much mental energy and just focus on writing the damn thing. So that's how I work. I think it's a very important thing. And I think that, it doesn't have to be Notion. It could be Apple Notes. It can be Gmail drafts. I know somebody who does that. And whatever works for you, but just do something where you're saving everything in one place and you're doing it consistently so that when you write, the pressure is off you. And let's keep going here. To actually write, like I said, I would take an hour a week to actually to write. But more specifically, this is another thing that Kyle and I learned from that conference that I mentioned. We were at a conference from somebody called Taki Moore, who's an amazing coach, who when I talked to his head of marketing, she basically told me this system that is such a simple thing, but an ultimate hack. And Kyle, if you're there, if you want to speak to it at all, what it is we would sit down once a week and essentially record the conversation, but I would show up like an interviewer. And I would show up with a bunch of Kyle's posts, a bunch of ideas, a bunch of stuff. So Kyle didn't have to basically come to the table with anything. If he had stuff, great. But there's no pressure on him to be coming up with stuff and creating stuff on the spot. Instead, that was on me. And then I could bring the prompts in. You can do this with AI. And I could sit there and interview Kyle. And we did it in a way where I'll get to in a second, where you can then clip things, you can write things. It depends on the format you're going for, but it's a very, very easy way to hack your creative system and to just create a ton of content. Honestly, if you separate the ideas and the creation into 2 distinct stages, I guarantee you, if you take nothing else from today's call, this will massively increase both the quantity and the quality of your work. So really, really, really simple system. Try doing it. Take one person from your team or do a self-interview once a week, but get serious about it and you will be shocked. One thing on the AI, if you are using ChatGPT to do this with yourself, you can take those problem statements and then basically ask it to generate problem statements from the perspective of the client, and you will essentially have prompts for yourself to answer. So how do I set up a Zoom call? I don't know. How do I solve this problem? I hate it when blank. Well, okay, have you tried doing this? These little things should create a little back and forth for you to just have inspiration to just talk to immediately. And you will have, like I said, quantity and consistency and quality go way up. So,
and one of the things I wanted to jump in here real quick, Dan, with is for those of you who have a lot of expertise around solving a specific problem. Maybe you're a software founder, you built a whole product around it. Maybe you have an agency or any type of business help solve a specific problem. You know the problem so well, and if you're anything like me, when you try to sit down and organize those thoughts, it comes out okay. But when somebody asks you the question, whatever words you speak at them are way better than when you sit down and try to structure it out yourself. So one of the benefits of how Dan just shared with you to kind of create this content, one of the benefits of this interview style is you take advantage of your natural response to a question that often, at least for me, and this is true, often comes out a lot better. And then you add a little structure afterwards and it becomes really good, versus if you go into it trying to structure this perfect post and you lose some of that authenticity that you get from when you're answering your question that's directly asked to you.
Kyle, that's such an important point, because I really think that even if you're not comfortable on video and you think that you're not great on video, you don't have to publish it. But if you are there with that tiny bit of pressure that you hit record and that you're speaking to a camera and the video, whatever you want to call it, you're actually speaking these things out loud, you will get better at stating your ideas more succinctly and more directly, more concisely, which is very important in general in your communication. You will also start to get a sense of where you have like some really good ideas, some big ideas that are really, really killer, and some stuff where you don't really care about it, or maybe you feel weak on it. But speaking it out loud and trying to get your answers basically compressed into 30 to 60-second answers, like you would, guess what, in a natural conversation, that is absolute gold, because that stuff will translate to LinkedIn posts so naturally. And this is something that many people don't bother with. So again, if you take nothing else from today, please just try this system, because it will massively, massively upgrade how you create. And think about, if you, like I mentioned, for founders who have a book, for example, you can take that book, you can turn it into a bunch of questions, a bunch of key points. Like I use a tool called Better Context. I absolutely love the team. They're great at taking big pieces and then turning it into little prompts for you, the human, or for the AI tool to write. But I prefer it as prompts. You can do this with ChatGPT. Here's a quick prompt that you can use if you want to, again, experiment with this. This is not gospel. You can absolutely, stray from it and experiment with your own thing. I encourage you to do that. What I used here is, I'm the founder of a company where we help this ICP accomplish this goal. I want you to act as my ICP and ask me basic questions related to the problem I solve. You can stray from this, you can try something else. But if you just do this and go back and forth, you can literally talk to ChatGPT as you go for a walk. And you will have content, you'll have ideas that you can then take back and do your final edits on to create LinkedIn posts. And ultimately, this screenshot that I showed you, or this GIF that I showed you, this is an endless source of ideas. I'm never going to be out of ideas. I don't know how many are here. You don't even see the hidden ones. Like, this is an endless font. And if you can create that resource for yourself, you will never go dry, and you'll always you'll get more excited actually about creating content in general, I think. So this is what I would like you to be doing. This is something that I think is you can go far beyond this, okay? But this is something that I think is well within reason for somebody who is on LinkedIn, familiar with the platform, but things just don't feel quite right. Remember at the beginning when I started talking, I said I didn't want to talk about like the hooks, or when you should be posting, what time of day, and all this kind of stuff. I wanted to talk about strategy. So again, just to recap here, we talked about creating a 3-step funnel. We then talked about directing it towards a very focused endpoint in the form of both a great lead magnet and then eventually a sales call. And then lastly, we talked about how to fuel that machine with great content. What I would like you to do here is challenge yourself to make 2 posts per day. One of those posts per week should be a hand raiser post. I want you to develop a great lead magnet. And again, I think you probably already have this at least 80% done. And even if you have to do one from scratch, you can get one done this week, 100% easily. I want you to make 5 comments on other people's posts per day. We didn't talk about much engagement today, but there's a lot. It's a deep topic that I can maybe talk to next week if you all are interested. I want you to do 5 connections where you're connecting with people actively per day. And then I also want you to almost semi-automate your DMs after specific touch points. So after a new connection, I want you to have a sort of a templatized or half templatized message to send out. After somebody comments on your post, a semi-templatized message to send out. After somebody likes your post, a semi-templatized message to send out. There's a lot more you can do on the engagement side, especially here. There's a lot more quantity you can do also. And there's, in general, a lot more you should be looking to do on LinkedIn eventually. But if you're not really comfortable, your feet are not really under you, and you've taken a couple shots at this and it hasn't really hit, I would challenge you to just take a screenshot of this, and for the next 30 days, can you just do this? I think this would really be a simple thing to do. It's not overwhelming. Don't try to go beyond it. But once you get this done, reach out to me, and I'd be happy to let you know of next steps to get a little bit more advanced. So, and I see one last question I'm going to jump into before Q&A. Yes, a hand raiser post is one of those resource giveaway posts that Kyle mentioned, or the one you responded to for this webinar, where we say, hey, this thing is coming up. Drop a comment yes, or something like that. And then, we'll talk to you. We'll send you a link or do something like that. That's what a hand raiser is. You're actively asking for engagement in the comments. You see this on Twitter all the time, pretty much across every social media platform. But I think LinkedIn and Twitter are the best for it because they're the most writing heavy. So with that said, Um, I am doing a bunch of free content audits. I'm taking 10 calls. So it's first come, first serve. If you just go to this Calendly link, this is where if you can just book there, I will take the first 10 people, and then I'm going to run through a proper content audit. I will let you know exactly where you're strong and weak, what to do next to get yourself focused. Where I excel, I think, is in customer voice and getting to be connected with a specific persona, and then how to do that. I'll also send you my LinkedIn copywriting course, my content repurposing workflow, my lead magnets database, my hooks database, and then also a link from Voris with Kyle's Sales Moneyball bundle, which is a ton of great sales training material that I've seen and I can attest to, which is very, very good. So with that said, Kyle, I'm happy to stop talking here and get you back in before we go to
Beautiful. Q&A. Yeah, well, thank you so much, Dan. And again, a lot of material here. Dan gave you a good framework to follow. The fact that he's doing content audits, he wanted to do 5. I kind of bullied him to do 10. The fact that he's doing these content audits is incredible. I mean, for him to sit down, take a detailed look at your LinkedIn, even if you're not very far along with your LinkedIn right now, he's going to give you little things that you can start doing today to start growing your audience and or convert that audience. So take advantage of that. He can only do 10 of them. And if we hit that limit, I might bully him to extend it, but I don't think we're gonna be able to do that. But thank you, Dan. I appreciate the generosity there. Let me also give everybody a link before we go into Q&A to the survey here. So if you could please fill out this survey. I mentioned it earlier. I'm going to bug you throughout the Q&A. My mission is to get 100% of people to fill out the survey. The idea here is by you filling out the survey, it gives me a lot of insight on what topics you like, how this class went. Are you appreciating this type of content? And if you could please fill out that survey, it means a lot to me because then I can keep improving these weekly live classes every single week. And fortunately, we have Dan for 2 weeks here because I'm going to be in Chicago. Side note, if you're in Chicago and you want to meet up, shoot me an email, kyle@voris.com. That might be fun. But okay, so that's the survey link. And then the link to the audit is right there as well. Let's transition into Q&A. And we'll start with Josh. I'm just going to the top here. We're going to scroll down and we'll get to all of the questions. So Josh asks, when posting on LinkedIn, do you recommend posting as himself, Josh, or his business, Clatter, or a combination of the two? Dan, how do you think about posting on LinkedIn as an individual versus a company?
So fantastic question. It's probably one that I should have touched on, but when I think of LinkedIn, I think about in social media in general, people follow people. So you should still have a brand page on LinkedIn that is healthy and looks okay. And maybe I should put together a little cheat sheet for that. But the more important profile, the more important account is your personal account. So Josh, if you have, especially I suppose if you're the founder, the CEO, or some sort of leader at your company, you almost by nature will have an expertise that is very unique to your company, but also to you. And if you can bring some of your expertise out into the world on LinkedIn, you will do well to attract people. It's just a matter of lining up a little bit of overlap between your personal stuff and of course your company stuff so that you're pointing people towards something that ultimately your company has produced and they opt in for your emails.
Awesome. People buy from people. That's an important rule to
absolutely
really understand here. All right, next one here is from Bill. Building on Josh's question, how frequently should we post? Now, this was before you mentioned 2 times per day, but do you just want to elaborate a little bit about 2 times per day?
I think 2 times per day is reasonable. I think there's, I see Bill coming in with conflicting advice there. You ultimately should be posting daily. So whether you want to post once or twice or 3 times, I don't think it really matters because ultimately we're talking about the fine margins of optimization. This is one of those things, again, where people who are so far along start giving advice where they're talking about, again, the fine margins of getting squeezing out the couple of percentage points at the very, very end of things. Ultimately, I feel that most people probably on here just need to get going in a way that is sustainable to get their teams used to producing content. Because also, if your team is helping you, keep in mind that suddenly dropping on people, we're posting daily on LinkedIn. If you go beyond that without any systems, you will suddenly run into a lot of trouble. Again, speaking from experience, you should just focus on posting daily. Ultimately, I can show you how to get to posting a lot more than twice a day if you want to, but experiment with it, try to post daily, and don't overthink it. Just get going and get focused on solving specific problems in your posts for people in your audience.
Yeah, and one thing I'll mention here is when my LinkedIn grew the
Mm.
most and we had the most reach is when I was posting twice a day. I've kind of fallen off the wagon a little bit here, so do as I say, not as I do. But when I post twice a day and I'm consistent with that, and they don't even have to be crazy posts; they just have to be really targeted to the people that I speak to. My LinkedIn grows a lot faster. Not all of the posts do well, but a couple of them hit, and then those do incredibly well. So you kind of disconnect yourself a bit from the analytics and just focus on putting the content out there, and it works really well. And also, before we go to the next question, if you could please fill out that survey, that's really helpful for us to know how you liked this live class, and also what are some other topics that we should cover in the past. We do these every week, usually on Thursdays. It's our first time doing it on Tuesday, but we have a really big audience, so maybe we should do Tuesdays more often. I don't know, but I think it's because Dan has a kick-ass topic here that we're covering. Okay, cool. And Dan, could you reshare the link to book an audit with you? Just a quick reminder, Dan's giving a whole bunch of stuff there. I forget all of the details, Dan, but I know you have like a hook library in there, just a whole bunch of stuff to book in addition to doing the content audit. But I'm also throwing in the sales, the sales team Moneyball bundle. This is a collection of resources that really breaks down how to run a sales team in a data-driven way, use metrics to be more intentional about the changes you make with your sales team to improve their performance. I'm also giving you guys the SDR fundamentals course and the AE fundamentals course. Each one of those is like 42 lessons of me talking about how to effectively close deals and how to book meetings. So if you haven't gotten your content audit yet, definitely fill that out. And Dan just put the link to book that in the comments again. Okay, next question here. How can I look into other people's funnel particularly? I'm trying to understand what that really means. Dan, how do you like reverse engineer someone else's funnel?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's one where I'm hopefully that's part of my content that's going to be valuable for people, so you can sort of see into people without spending a lot of time in it. But it's essentially looking through their content and then where do I get pointed to? So most people who have a decent funnel already set up will have specific CTAs and will eventually guide you somewhere. And I will be basically breaking down some successful and fast growing accounts. And I will be looking at their content. So what type of content are they posting? Most people will create what are called content buckets and then post basically 3 types of content every week. So day 1 might be, a rewrite of something. Day 2 might be an example. Day 3 might be, a case study. Could be whatever it is, but it's a repeatable schedule that they post on. So I'll break that down, and then I'll break down where does the content go? What's their lead magnet? Essentially, what are they asking us to do? And then from there, what happens? So, and it's a pretty simple process, but it's one that is a bit of a pain in the butt if you're not specializing in it. So that's what I'm going to be doing, and hope that's clear.
Awesome. And we're going to ramp up the speed here because we have a lot of questions to get to. So
Okay.
The next one here is from Omar. So tofu posts are basically, I'm an expert in my field, and bofu posts are the why you should reach out to me to fix the problem. Is that a good way to categorize them?
Sort of. I think the tofu posts are basically capture attention by saying, "Hey, you have this problem. Here's how to solve it." Try to give some value just directly in the posts. Mofu stuff is more like, "Hey, I've worked on something for you. I've created this asset for you. Here it is for free. Would you like it?" And hopefully that's a way for people to actually give you their emails and follow you more closely. And then Bofu is the actual sales calls where you can run sales emails, excuse me, or sales campaigns via your marketing emails and ask for sales calls more directly to that more focused audience.
Awesome. Sam had a question here from LinkedIn. Does Notion have a built-in AI assistant? Have you tried Notebook LM? I'll answer this one here. Yes, Notion does. It's pretty good. It's built on OpenAI's API. Notebook LM, I played around with a lot. I think it's really cool, but I think if you're going to do the stuff that Dan has walked you through here today, I would just use ChatGPT. I've played around with a lot of the different models personally, and I just keep going to ChatGPT because it's so good.
Keep it simple, whatever works for you.
Yeah, exactly. Do you send a message in the connection request? I'll answer this one too. No, I never do. I find that the connection rate is a lot higher when you don't send connection requests. We have several clients that use cold LinkedIn messaging as part of their process, and we have found that it's a lot more effective when you don't put a message in there.
Yeah, if
All
you
right,
have a
next
great
question
reason
here.
to do it,
Go
then
ahead.
do it. But if you have a great reason to do it, do it. But if you don't, just it's fluff.
Yeah, test it if you'd like to. Okay. Next question here. One hand raiser post means, yeah, what type of post could it be? So the hand raiser he already explained, but just so you guys have an example of it, if you go to my LinkedIn page, go to my recent post, you'll see the post that you replied to come here, or maybe you came from our email list. That's okay too. Go to my LinkedIn. You'll see it's whenever at the end of the post it says comment yes to get this thing or to sign up for this webinar, that kind of thing. And they work really well for us. They're actually our top performing post, which is pretty crazy. All right, next question. How do I qualify leads better? And how can I see where the holes are in my sales process when leads aren't converting? Okay, so I'll take this one here. We have a really great training around this. You'll see it in the events page, a recording of it. If you go through it, it's how to use sales metrics to improve your sales team's performance. The long story short here is you track everything. So you track the activities, the responses or engagements of those activities. So cold calls, people who answer the phone, email sent, email replies. And then of the engagements of those activities, you look at how many people book appointments from those. Those percentages will help you understand where your bottleneck might be. And then when you move into the sales process, it's deal stage drop off. So what percentage of deals drop off between deal stage 1 and 2, 2 and 3, 3 and 4, 4 and close, whatever your process looks like. And wherever the biggest drop off is where you want to put some attention to improve that drop off. So that's a very quick version. I have a 40-minute training on it. If you email me, we'll dig up an old recording for you. It's kyle@voris.com. All right. Do you have any template for connection requests? We kind of covered this already. We don't generally recommend putting anything in your connection request. Can you talk more about DMs on likes? So if somebody likes the post, Dan, how do you recommend people actually DM them after?
Super, super simple. Hey, thanks for liking my post. And then whatever the next stage is, to engage in a conversation. So, hey, I have this thing. Would you like me to send over blank? Hopefully it's relevant and connected. But hey, I noticed this that you liked. Let's connect. Or hey, I noticed you like this my post. Here's something related. They are signaling their interest. It's a chance for you to engage and take them to a next step.
Awesome. And if you haven't already, please fill out this survey. Again, it gives us a lot of information on how we can improve these classes. For those of you who've come to a lot of them, I make little tweaks very often in the pursuit of perfection. Please fuel my perfectionism. That'd be awesome. Fill out the survey. It's very helpful for me. Okay, great. And then Dan, repost your link too while we're at it.
Yeah.
So we talked about this one already. Next question here is from Mark. In our industry, CRM/ERP solutions, I see far more engagement by peers than prospects. How can we change this? Dan, what do you say to that? I'm sure a lot of people run into this.
Yes, this is a huge thing, especially in some more legacy industries. But are you solving problems for the target audience? Yes or no? And I think that what I see in a lot of content in this kind of space is people talking about their company events or things where things are internal or, like you said, peer-to-peer, versus are you just being very valuable to the people who are going to buy from you? This is a signal that things aren't dialed in from a customer research and a focus perspective. So again, that's a deep dive on ChatGPT, or talk to some of your real customers, find out what their specific challenges are, and then write content for that.
Totally. That's awesome. Next question here. You mentioned experimenting with LinkedIn newsletter. What are your general thoughts about LinkedIn newsletter? So their actual platform, they have a newsletter platform versus having it in your own mailing list. Would you do both or just one?
I would do both. And the person who I am copying 100% on this in terms of her structure is Nancy Duarte. Look her up. I recently stumbled upon her and she has her stuff dialed in when it comes to the newsletter stuff. You'll see that the newsletter is a chance for you to, on LinkedIn newsletter is a chance for you to send them to your website. It's a chance for you to send them to your email newsletter. It's a great middle stage that I think a lot of people are going to be doing. And ultimately, keep in mind, LinkedIn wants you to do things to support LinkedIn. So keep that in mind. Play the game according to LinkedIn rules, and you'll probably succeed. So it's one thing that they're pushing. They're also pushing video. So video content and LinkedIn newsletters are two of the things that I'm pushing a lot more as of last week.
Awesome. Next question here. You recommend 2 posts per day. I see conflicting advice on this. Some swear only once per day. I can tell you, I've done a lot of LinkedIn over my career. The most impactful has been posting twice a day. I did it for a year straight, where I post twice a day, every single day, 7 days a week. That's 14 posts. And that is by far the most growth that I've ever seen. The first month, you're not going to really feel it. The second month, you start to feel it. That third month, like it really kicks into gear. It's one of these things that I keep going, gosh, I need to like get refocused and really start posting a lot more on LinkedIn. It is very much a quantity game on LinkedIn in my experience.
Real quick, when you're creating quantity as well, this will give you a database of stuff to look at. And you might trash a lot of it down the road, but you'll also guarantee that you will have a chance at creating better and better content. It's practice, it's reps in the game, and then it's creating a database of content, especially if you use Notion or one of the things like I showed you to save things in one place. It's just a better move to do.
Yeah, and what's nice about it, and this is what I found myself doing, is I would go back to all of the posts that I had done over the course of that year, find the ones that I thought were good topics but didn't perform very well, and then I'll tweak them and see if I can make it perform better the next time that I post it. So it does give you a nice database, like Dan's saying, of stuff that you can try and repurpose. You can straight up repurpose some of the content that you did earlier in the year, but more important than that, you can find ones that didn't perform quite as well as you feel like they should have and do a little edit on them. Should we repost to groups? I don't. Dan, do you ever post?
I don't. I can understand if you're in a space where the groups are very important, like there's an industry association or something that's very much group focused, it might be a good idea. I've never worked in a space where the group is really heavily used. I think that maybe if we were talking about Facebook or something, maybe the answer would be different. But LinkedIn, I don't use groups, therefore I don't post in the groups. That might be an oversight on my part, but that's my take.
Yeah, that's mine as well. I definitely don't post in groups on LinkedIn. Should I share my post with multiple same question. Multiple LinkedIn groups? No, I don't play around in LinkedIn groups. Okay. If a customer is choosing between us and the other, what are some of the best questions to discover what is needed to win? You ask them. So this is more of a sales call question. If you're running a sale and you early on don't ask what is required from their side in order to make a decision, you're missing out on a really important piece of information. You have to know what the requirements are and position yourself based on those requirements. Doesn't mean you're going to win every sale, but not having that information is bad. So what I recommend doing is early on asking them, hey, what criteria, how are you guys planning on making this decision? What criteria are you using to determine who to move forward with? And ask that earlier on. That's better.
And real quick here, Kyle, I think that's a perfect question to start talking to ChatGPT about. Like, I think I just said, it's a great analyst. Say, I'm this company, my competitor is this company. Can you break down where are my relative strengths? Where are their relative strengths? How do we compete? How should I position myself? Who would win? What situation is better for them versus us? Vice versa. This is an extended conversation you can have with a true analyst if you feed it the right way.
Totally. Okay, here's a longer one and also our final question. So what I do is I repost what our marketing department posts every day, which is sometimes more than twice per day and sometimes about one or none. Now, these usually fall under all 3 sections of the funnel. I usually go with a direct messaging strategy for my business development. So how do I optimize and incorporate this whole process into my outreach strategy? My short answer to this question would be you need to do this all yourself. You shouldn't just be copying and pasting your marketing department stuff. But Dan, what do you think?
I think if you're just hitting repost, that doesn't count as a post. I think if you are hitting repost and truly adding a whole post on top of it with a real take, not just, hey, my team just posted this awesome thing, look at this. I have no value. I mean, think about it from the reader's perspective. You get your feed just polluted with this stuff where it's like people just randomly reposting stuff. Unless it's truly valuable, it's not going to help me, the reader. And unless you're adding your own take, I'm not going to remember you, the author.
Yeah, totally. Great. And then last one here is how often are you repurposing content? The hand raiser posts are all repurposed because we do some of the similar live classes. We also give similar resources out. So we reuse a lot of the hand raiser posts. Sometimes we write unique ones like we did for this class here. So that's how often I repost that kind of stuff. When it comes to like my actual posts, I don't know, probably when I'm like really dialed into posting on LinkedIn, maybe 30% of my posts will be ones that performed well for me, last year. Dan, do you have any best practices around this?
So that's an area that I'm working on getting better at, because that's something that I think I've probably neglected in the past, that I'd like to spend like 50% more attention on. So I think that ultimately I would like to be on a weekly basis looking at my top performing posts and then really considering, am I going to take at least the top 2 and then try to do something with them next week?
Yeah.
So something like that would be good structure.
And real quick here, Jonathan says reposts will not get into the algorithm and therefore not traction, waste of time. That's actually very not true. Some of my reposts do better than the first time that I've posted. I've had that happen several times.
Oh, I think so. Just to clarify there, Kyle,
Yeah.
I think Jonathan means like hitting repost on somebody else's post.
Oh, if that's the case, then yeah, that does.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
see anything, but like repurposing, content.
Reusing. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I clarified that. I think you're right. But just so everybody else knows, when you do reuse some of your past content, it does seem to work really well. And sometimes your audience is a bit bigger, which is good. But yeah, reposted specific content, Jonathan clarified. Good. Yeah, it doesn't really seem to do anything. I do it if someone's like, oh, Kyle's going to be on our webinar or something, and I'll just repost it to be nice. Okay, cool. I think we're in good shape here. No more questions. Thank you so much. And everybody, for those of you who booked the content audit or the LinkedIn audit, I'm very excited for you to experience Dan actually giving you some really direct feedback. If you haven't done that yet, go ahead and do that. Also, this is what Dan does. He helps people really grow and then convert their LinkedIn audiences. So if you're looking to have somebody help you actually create all of this content and create your funnel, reach out to Dan. You can find him on LinkedIn. Dan, anywhere else that you want people to find you on?
Eventually I'm going to have my YouTube up and running, but I think LinkedIn is the channel I'm leaning into big time. And therefore, please connect with me on LinkedIn. Actually, since we're at it, I'm going to drop my my profile right now. And why don't you connect with me, and we can also continue the conversation there if it's useful to you at all. Here you go. And boom.
Beautiful. Awesome. Well, Dan, thank you so much. For everybody else, if you go to Vorse.com/events, you'll see our upcoming event. There's going to be a new one pop up here. Dan's going to fill in for me next week. Originally, we weren't going to have any, but he's going to fill in for me, which is great. I'll be in Chicago, so I can't make it. Thank you guys so much. There's a lot you can be doing on a Tuesday. I know everyone's really busy, but you decided to spend it with us. I greatly appreciate that. As a last minute exit, I'm going to desperately beg you to fill out this survey. If you've appreciated the content today in any way, or you hated it and you want to let me know, but especially if you appreciated it, it means a ton to me to get that survey filled out. This is not a weird sales survey where we're going to cold call you and try to book a meeting. It is genuinely for us to improve these weekly live classes every single week. Really appreciate you. Thank you so much, and we'll talk soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye.